Hey guys, what's up? We are back again with another video. Today we are doing our South Carolina football prediction 2023 edition. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, that big red button if you want to help channel grow. Like the video if you enjoy it. Comment all your thoughts and opinions down below. But most importantly, go ahead and check out College Football Roundup. It is a channel where me and American Football Network are combining our thoughts and doing our weekly podcast for the top 20 games of every single week in this college football season. So if you want a weekly podcast that recaps the previous week's games and talks about the biggest matchups come, whether it be group of five, power five, or whatever, go ahead and hit that subscribe button over there. Now let's get into today's video as we head over to the schedule. So South Carolina has one of the most interesting week one matchups with College Game Day coming over to Charlotte, where they will be playing this matchup. It is College Game Day mostly because Florida State and LSU is on a Sunday, and Clemson and Duke is on a Monday, and Florida and Utah is on a Thursday. So South Carolina, North Carolina is no doubt an interesting matchup, but I think with all of those games, with the exception of maybe Duke and Clemson, would probably be game day instead. But congrats to the Gamecocks. So when it comes down to this game, I will say I went very back and forth on this game. It is a game in which it is going to be a very offensive-heavy battle. Both defenses are not very good. South Carolina's defensive line is not very good. South Carolina's offensive line is not very good. North Carolina's offensive and defensive line is not very good. South Carolina's secondary is a little bit inexperienced. You do not have the players that you had last year, particularly Cam Smith, the cornerback that was drafted last year. That was a big hit to this team because of his success as a player. But I think at the end of the day, you're looking at a player that you're looking at a team and in a matchup in which it's going to come down to one thing. I think it is going to come down to who has the better supporting cast around him, because I think Drake May is a better quarterback than Spencer Sanders, in my opinion, unless if Spencer Sanders plays like the Tennessee version of Spencer Sanders. If he plays like the Tennessee version of Spencer Sanders, he is on par, if not better than Drake May. But at the end of the day, who has a better supporting cast? I'm going to go with the Gamecocks in that category. I think that between coaching, even though Mac Brown did win that national championship with Texas, I think that at North Carolina, he has struggled from time to time as a head coach. It's a neutral-ish site game. Probably be an equal amount of fans. Charlotte, not that far away from Columbia. And there's plenty of fans up in the Rock Hill area, which is right below Charlotte. So I think that you're definitely in a good spot if you're South Carolina. I'm very interested in this matchup. I think it should be a fun one, but I am going to give a win there to the Gamecocks. Then you welcome home for your first home game against Furman. This is a win, but Furman is a top 5 team in the FCS this year. They are good. They are really good. They're not going to compete with South Carolina talent-wise, but by no means should you overlook this game, because Furman is not going to just roll over. They are going to have to be beaten and beaten well. You're not just going to be able to walk into this game, score 70 points, and walk out unscathed. You are going to have to fight for this for probably an entire half before you can walk away with this game. You're going to have to beat Furman up. This is not a Furman team that is going to just roll over. This is a Furman team that offensively has some pieces and has a shot at an FCS national title this year if they could beat South Dakota State. It's a Furman team that, be careful. But I'm sure a lot of you Gamecock fans know Furman is a solid program. So I would definitely be interested in that matchup. So then you have Georgia. You have a road game against Georgia. This is a loss. This is as much of a loss as Furman is a win. There's just no way you beat Georgia. I'm sorry. I get that Georgia lost a lot of pieces. They lost Stetson Bennett. But This is a South Carolina team that lost last year 48-7, the year before 40-13. The year before that, it was 45-16. The year before that, they did beat them 20-17, but that was the last time they played a competitive matchup. And the year before that, it was 41-17. This is a not a rivalry, but a matchup with some hatred in it. I guess you could somewhat call it a rivalry because Georgia and South Carolina don't like each other. But at the end of the day, this is a team that until South Carolina proves that they can beat them, I'm not going to pick South Carolina to win the matchup. So I do think that it is going to be a struggle for the Gamecocks. And I don't see it. I don't see it, especially with this game being Athens. Then you have a home game against Miss State. I do think that you're able to get a win here. I think Miss State is going to struggle here in the SEC and could be the worst team in the SEC at the end of the year. I think Will Rogers, good quarterback. Mike Leach passing. I don't know how much I trust this team. I think that it was good to be able to hire the DC that I'm forgetting his name, but I think that at the end of the day, they're going to have a lot of pieces moving, and I just don't fully trust Miss State in order to get a win there. Then you play on the road against Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. Last year, South Carolina won this game. They shocked the country and basically, I would say, beat the crap out of Tennessee, where they really showed the country that they could get some dubs against, they had 3 top 15 wins last year against Kentucky at number 13, against Tennessee at number 5, and against Clemson at number 7. These were some impressive wins, but they also, at the same time, and other moments would just befuddly lose to a Missouri or a Florida and lose to Florida 38-6. So the point that I will make with this game particularly is that I think Tennessee is a good team. I think Joe Milton is a solid quarterback, and it is not easy to win in Neyland. Just as hard it is to win in William Bryce is just as hard, if not harder, to win in Neyland. I think that this is a stadium that you're not going to walk into Knoxville and get the win. Just have it as a loss. Then you have Florida. It's at home. Like I mentioned, you lost to Florida 38-6 last year. It was hard to be able to put this game in the win category. I just don't see it being able to overcome a 32-point victory that Florida had. Florida wiped the floor with South Carolina. That was just a bloodbath of a game. And I get that maybe you could say it turned around the season. It woke South Carolina up. It woke Spencer Sanders up. And you scored more than 30 points in each of the remaining matchups. But even in the matchup against Clemson, you had a lot of head-scratching moments from Spencer Rattler. I'm sorry, not Sanders. And in the Notre Dame game, he was solid. He was good, but he still had some moments where it's like, what are you doing, Spencer? What are you doing? So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Obviously, last year it was kind of a slow start to the season in some of the offensive matchups. But I think with this team, with Florida particularly, I cannot, under good conscience, give South Carolina the win when you lost by 32 points last year, even if this game is at home this year. Then you have a road game against Missouri. I'm also going to put this in the loss column. I know it's hard to hear, South Carolina fans, but I have you starting off with a 3-4 record. But I promise it will get better. It will get better. So don't wait for a minute. Just wait for a minute. But hear me out. Missouri, another team that you lost to at home, 23-10. Missouri is a solid team. They have a solid quarterback. They have a solid wide receiver core. They have a pretty solid defense. This is a Missouri team that beat you last year, so I'm going to go with Missouri. But I get that. I know it seems very hypocritical that I'm saying, oh, you're going to lose to Tennessee, even though you beat the crap out of them last year, and now you're going to lose to Florida and Missouri because you lost to them last year. But just hear me out. Tennessee, that game should not have happened. It wasn't that it was lucky, but it was upset. You play the crowd. It was great. I don't think you're going to be able to walk into Neyland and just play the crowd and stuff like that. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. And then when it comes to this Missouri game particularly, I think they just match up well against South Carolina. In the trenches, they're much better. And the wide receiver game, they're much better outside of that Antonio Wells. South Carolina's wide receivers are a little bit iffy. So I think that you're looking at a team that is going to be good. They're going to be, but they also lost some pieces. You lost Zach Pickens. It's a team that's has some pieces to rebuild. But just like in the second half of last season, let's get this winning streak going. Texas A&M got the dub. I think Texas A&M is going to be a solid team this year. They're going to be better than they were last year, but at the same time, I don't trust them. I do not trust them. I don't like Jimbo Fisher as a head coach. I don't think he's a great head coach. He's a solid head coach. He's not terrible, but he's not a great head coach either. You can give the win to the Gamecocks. I also think that you beat the other Gamecocks, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. I don't think you have an issue with them. Jacksonville State moving up from the FCS to the FBS this year, moving into, I think it is Conference Conference USA. Yep, is the conference they're joining. So last year they actually Rich Rodriguez is their coach. That's the other point that I wanted to mention. That was kind of an interesting point. Last year, Jacksonville State did play a 9-2 schedule, but they lost to Tulsa 54-17. And Tulsa was not a great team last year, so I just don't see them being a very good team this year in Jacksonville State. Though we'll see, maybe. Then you have Vanderbilt. I do think that you get a win here, but by no means do you walk over Vanderbilt. But last year, you beat them pretty well. You beat them soundly, 38-27 on the road. So I think that this is a game that I think it may be within 10. I think Vanderbilt may make it competitive, but I do think South Carolina does get the dub. Then as we continue on in this win streak, I think that you beat Kentucky as well. I think that this is a South Carolina team. Now they're on a roll. You play in Kentucky at home. This is a great stretch for South Carolina. Your last 4 games are all at home. I realized that previously, but then I had forgotten that. Yeah, your last 4 games are at home. I think you get another win there against Kentucky. I think that Spencer Sanders and the supporting cast will be well defined. I think Antoine Wells is just going to be a dynamic wide receiver this year. And I think the defense, especially in the secondary later on in the season, is going to be much better than the previous part of the season. Then you have Clemson. I'm going to give you the W. And here's my logic here. And South Carolina fans, I'm sure you really don't care about my logic as long as I have you beating Clemson. I live near Clemson, South Carolina, so I understand. I know a lot of South Carolina fans. Here's the thing. I think you beat Clemson for combined 2 reasons. One, you have a somewhat proven quarterback. Clemson does not. Number 2, I think that you have home field advantage, so I think that that is critical, but that's not really number 2, though. I guess not 3 points then. 3 points. The third and the final point is this. I think South Carolina has the experience now that they can beat Clemson, and I don't fully trust Clemson. And Spencer Sanders made a lot of mistakes against Clemson. So did Clemson. Both teams made mistakes. Both teams should have lost that game. It just happened to be that South Carolina came away the victor. I just think that South Carolina is able to build on that momentum. And instead of getting shut out 30-0, I think that they are able to get a second straight win in the Palmetto rivalry. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. South Carolina fans, if you enjoyed it, I have you going 8-4. A possible chance at a 9th win in the postseason. Hit 2 videos down below. If you enjoyed it, one would be the podcast playlist down below of all of my college football prediction videos, and hit the subscribe button up here. Help me reach 1,200 subscribers by the end of August. And as always, have a great day. Bye, guys.